Hello and welcome to Jazcast. I am Jazz, you are here, and this is a cast. This is episode 1 of Jazcast, a new series brought to you by me, Jazz. This is going to start out as a solo podcast where I talk about whatever I want to talk about. I eventually hope to have guests on at some point, where then we'll talk about whatever the two of us, or maybe even three of us if we want to get adventurous, want to talk about. Now, on the Jazzcast, I will be playing a game beneath Jazzcast. Today's game is Dead Cells. This may or may not change every week or however long I do these episodes, by the way. But today's episode will be featuring Dead Cells, which is a fun roguelike game that I can just sort of kind of run through on autopilot, which is why I chose it, so that I can just play the game. You have something to look at, I have something to do while I talk. So first of all, let's have our little bit of our check-in, our intro check-in. How are you doing? I hope you're having a wonderful day. I myself am having a pretty decent one. I took a nap right before this, actually, and I woke up and I thought it was tomorrow morning, and I was talking to Jamie like it was tomorrow morning. And then he was like, dude, what day do you think it is? And I got really confused because I thought that it was actually today, because this will get uploaded tomorrow. These episodes will be uploaded pretty much as soon as I record them. And I was like, isn't it Sunday or Sunday morning? And he was like, nope, it's still Saturday night. So I'm recording this Saturday night, if you couldn't figure out by that. But anyway, I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope that if you're having a tough time in your life, that you'll work through rather quickly. That I've never seen that before. Anyway, and I hope that if you're having a great time, that you keep on having a great time. So, today's episode, we will be discussing music. I figured it would be a nice opening episode. So first of all, let's talk about my experience with music, particularly with listening to music first. My earliest memories involve listening to music, specifically listening on my mom's iPod, because I was around for iPods when I was young and full of youth. But my mom had an iPod, and she had some songs downloaded to it. So I would just sit around for a little bit and watch music videos on her iPod, because she also had the music video she had a player, like a big iPod player, like one of those big box type things. And it was just something that I would spend a lot of time watching. Like, I got into Coldplay kind of like that when I was young. I don't really get the hate that people have for Coldplay. I think that maybe modern Coldplay can be a little bit lazy, but earlier Coldplay, I don't see much of a problem with it, honestly. Anyway, I would watch Coldplay music videos mostly from like Milo Xyloto. I watched the Crazy Frog music video more times than anyone ever should. It's kind of burned into my brain a little bit. Oh god, low battery, oh no. Anyway. And I just would spend a lot of time doing that. Then eventually I got into more my own taste of music. I started to figure that out. I used to hate jazz music when I was younger, partly because my name's Jazz, and it just felt cliche to like jazz music when my name is Jazz. So I kind of went, I'm not like other girls, I'm quirky and random, and I just sort of rebelled against liking jazz music, which is a silly thing to rebel against, but hey, it's what I did. And I eventually actually gave jazz music a chance, and I found that I really, really enjoyed it. And I'm glad that I gave it a chance, because there's a lot of good jazz music out there. one of my favorite albums of all time. It's a compilation album, so I know it's cheating, but it is the Louis Prima Wild, Cool, and Swingin' album. It's just a bunch of Louis Prima songs. I like it partly because I listened to it a lot with my dad, so it has a lot of happy connotations with that album and with songs off that album. And but like there's just so much jazz music out there. And a good jazz album that I'd recommend is Chick Corea's Now He Sings, Now He Sobs. And unfortunately, Chick Corea passed rather recently, just about a month ago, I think. But he's done so much good work within jazz music, and I'm really glad that he's put something out there in the world, while he had time. Whew, that got morbid. Anyway, of course, you have like Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan. While she's like popular now, of course, she was about as good as Ella Fitzgerald. Some would say better in some regards. Some being my dad. But she just didn't have as great of a marketing team, from what I know about Sarah Vaughan, which is a shame because she's a really great musician. She's a really great singer. But yeah, I spent a lot of my early life around jazz music, and actually listening to jazz music. Partly because the area that I grew up in had a pretty active jazz music scene, and it still is active. Then I think I was sort of all over the place in like my middle years of not quite being a person, as in like a teenager, I guess. Just wasn't really in tune with any particular music. Like I had music I listened to. I think it was a lot of R&B at that time, like 70s and 80s R&B I'm talking about. And also jazz music, a mix of a little bit of pop music, though not too much. I wasn't a big fan of pop music in the 2000s. Just was not my vibe. Or excuse me, that in like the early 2010s, I mean to say. That was just, I never really figured out how to vibe with it, nor did I really want to. Which is kind of a shame because I always like appreciating good music and branching out from the genres that I like. And I just... Where was I going with that train of thought? Right, I was talking about my middle years. So I wound up listening to a lot of classical music, partly because I wound up playing classical music, and we'll get into that a little bit later. And also just because, my dad, again, go figure, my parents have had a lot of influence on how I listen to music, or at least they had a lot of influence, particularly earlier on when I was younger. It was a lot of, oh, well, they listen to this, so I guess I'll listen to this. And that's the case with, like, me listening to 70s and 80s R&B, or me listening to 60s for a little bit, thanks to my stepdad. And listening to, like, 80s and a little bit of pop music thanks to my mom. Anyway, classical music is what I've been trying to work my way to. I wound up listening to... I wound up going to, like, concerts with the local orchestra. Because, again, I come from a very musically active area. So... Oops, someone is walking around. So I was never really, like, mega into symphonic classical music. Like, some of my friends who were much more into it on the listening end than I would be able to, like, tell you who their favorite composer is. I can't really do that, though I will say that Bernstein is an incredible composer, symphonically. My earliest classical music experiences were Rhapsody in Blue and American in Paris. Actually, my dad has a record that has both those songs, both those pieces on it, with the Boston Orchestra playing Summer Pops. I think that was the album at least, and just having listening to that piece in particular, Rhapsody in Blue, just kind of blew my mind, and I listened to it quite frequently. Because it's Rhapsody in Blue and it's on vinyl, and if you haven't listened to Rhapsody in Blue, highly recommend listening to Rhapsody in Blue. It's an incredible work. It's so much fun to listen to. Also American in Paris, but particularly Rhapsody in Blue. Just the way it builds. And if you live in New York City, it's even more reason to listen to Rhapsody in Blue. One of my teachers has advised his students, aka myself and my peers, to just walk around the city with headphones, listening to Rhapsody in Blue. And I haven't done that quite yet, but I certainly plan to at some point. Probably as soon as I get earbuds, because right now I only have headphones. Earbuds are tricky with my ears because I have wonky ears. I have two different ears. Be sure to leave in the comments if you have two different ears like me. But I just have two different ears, which is rather strange. One from my mom, one from my dad, which means that a lot of headphones earbuds don't quite fit me, unfortunately. Which sucks. Well. And anyway, so that's why I haven't done that quite yet, because I feel a little silly to be walking around with headphones at times. Like, I'll go on a nice walk outside listening to music with headphones in, or headphones on, you know what I mean. But I just don't have earbuds yet. Raycon, if you want a sponsorship deal, I'll buy yours. But anyway, so yeah, Rhapsody in Blue was my start to really liking classical music. And when I say like classical music, I'm not talking about like expressly classical era music. I know that there are plenty of people who get really picky about what to call classical music. I am not really one of those people. I could not tell you the specific differences on hand between the different eras, like Baroque versus classical versus romantic versus modern versus postmodern. I could tell you at some point the difference between like Baroque and romantic and classical, but I can't do that anymore, partly because I just haven't been in that sphere of music in the last year or so. So I've sort of lost that knowledge, which is fine because other people have that knowledge, so I don't have to. And I don't write that kind of music anyway. And we'll get into me writing music in a little bit. I'm teasing part of the episode later on so that you stay interested in my podcast. Ha ha ha. Aren't I so evil? So then the first time that I have like a defining artist that I can like point at and say I really liked this guy would be in junior year of high school. So pretty recently. Well, also sophomore, junior year. Oh, side note, I have completed the run at exactly 8 minutes here. I think that's worthy of a hydration break. Get some water nearby. Remember to hydrate, folks. Nothing like good water. I know that the 3 a.m. water meme is a little overplayed, but it is true. 3 a.m. water just is really good. So, where was I? Yes, junior year, I was really into Jack Stauber. If you haven't heard of Jack Stauber, he is I'm not exactly sure what the best way to describe his genre is. He kind of does his own thing. And it's just really really cool music that he makes. Like, it's weird. You actually, if you've been on TikTok at all, you've probably heard Jack Stauber. You've heard Buttercup, which is the "Again I'll do it sometime. I'm locked up on the button." It's that song. You've probably also heard the 8-bit version that has like the ferret dancing to it. Um, yeah, it's that. That's Jack Stauber. That's like entrance Jack Stauber, because there is certainly a Jack Stauber iceberg, and there are certainly ways that you can and maybe can't start listening to Jack Stauber. Like, there's some weird shit that he's done, and there's some regular stuff that, well, regular as far as regular Jack Stauber goes. But another thing about Jack Stauber is just he does a lot of animations, and he does like music with the animation. So he'll do like I actually don't know what his creative process is, because he's a slightly secretive person. Not super secretive, but he certainly keeps up with the character a little bit, as far as I can tell. So he'll do his animations, and I'll put them on YouTube. And for a couple of the little songs, and they're also very short animations, and for a couple of them, they will receive extended editions on with his account Jack Stauber's Micropop on Spotify. So if you see a Jack Stauber short video that you like, because again they're all like 30 seconds or to a minute, you can check on the Jack Stauber's Micropop account and see if he has done an extended edition. He has 4, maybe 5 extended edition EPs that he's put out there. And I would highly recommend them all, of course, but a good place to start for listening to Jack Stauber would be either Buttercup, or really just about anything on off of Pop Food. Pop Food's a really good starting album that he did as Jack Stauber. And also, Hamantha, Ballad of Hamantha, which is one of the extended edition micro pops that he has done. It's a really solid entrance into Jack Stauber, I think. So I would definitely check out those two things at least. But I've gotten pretty into Jack Stauber, and partly why you have to sort of enter his music in a certain order is because he's done some weird songs, like Shattered Molars, which is just a short one, that I would not play someone Shattered Molars as a first impression of Jack Stauber. It's just incredibly overwhelming. Also, maybe I would hold off on like Out the Ox, because that's another song that's also pretty overwhelming. His album Viator is an extra weird one, which is, again, would not start anyone on Viator. It's not my favorite album that he's done. Like, it's good, it's fine. I just don't really vibe with it as much as his other stuff. So yeah, Jack Stauber was my big thing in sophomore and junior year. This controller is probably going to die soon, and when it does, we'll figure it out. But fast forward to senior year now, and this is when I had my Rex Orange County phase. Rex Orange County is a bedroom pop indie artist. Part of why I got into Rex Orange County is just because of the life stuff that was going on. You know, Jack Stauber, I was there for the vibe, but Rex Orange County, I was there for the lyrics. There's just things happening in my life that I could look at and relate to through Jack Stauber's music. Why am I saying Jack Stauber? Through Rex Orange County's music. be rather concerned if there was too much I could look at through Jack Stauber's rather strange at times music. But Rex Orange County was sort of a big artist in my brain, in my world at the time. He's had a lot of good stuff. He put out his album Pony rather recently. Like I wasn't I was a fan by the time he put out Pony, so I was able to get it all excited about the release. I still remember listening to what's the song? What's the name of that song? It's the Pluto Projector. I remember listening to Pluto Projector for the first time and being very wowed and tearing up a little bit too. It's just there's another album I would highly recommend. Also, Corduroy Dreams is a really solid Rex Orange County album. Apricot Princess has a lot of really good songs on it, which is, again, I look at all these music recommendations I'm just tossing your way, dear listener. But yeah, I just would highly recommend Rex Orange County. And as I'm starting to get a little bit older, I can feel myself sort of slipping away from Rex Orange County because all those lyrics were so very senior year jazz. And I am not senior year jazz anymore. I am college jazz. So I just don't get to it's different now. To quote one of his songs, it's not the same anymore, and there's nothing wrong with that. If there's an artist that you used to like that you don't really get or vibe with or listen to anymore, that is perfectly all right. It's another thing. It's more information about yourself, I guess. I don't know. You're just in a different place in your life, and you're seeing a different artist, and you're falling away from your old one, and that is perfectly natural. It happens to just about everyone, I think, at some point with some artist. I can imagine there were a lot of '80s groups that a lot of people these days go, why was I listening to them? But I can also see it sticking around for nostalgia, if nothing else. But yeah, Rex Orange County, he's very good, and I will still keep an eye on the work that he puts out. Maybe just not too close of not as close of an eye as I used to, perhaps. But I'll still get excited when he releases whatever, because how can I not? Another artist that I started to really vibe with, and still vibe with to this day, is Dodie. Dodie's music is just very, very, very good. Her album Build a Problem was going to be coming out this month, but unfortunately, because of the major world health event known as coronavirus, the production on the album got pushed back to May 7th. And I was really looking forward to that album, so I'm kind of bummed about that. I was already here. I put on her music often when I'm a little bit down in the dumps about any particular thing, just because a lot of her songs are that sort of vibe. Like if I'm feeling kind of like a lonely chap, you know, I'll put on like Intertwined and go, gosh, I miss cuddling. I really wish I had someone to cuddle. And I just listen to Intertwined and I go, Dodie, I'm so jealous of you in this moment that you've written this song. But that's okay, because it's not really my song to write anyway. But, yeah, lots of Dodie. Been really excited to see what she does now. She also, most artists have their own particular way of writing a song. like Rex Orange County has has his vibe, which I can't really put into words, but I can put Doty's into words. Doty's is guitar vamps and patterns and ostinatos with melodies that are just sound like Doty. Maybe I can't describe her as well as I thought that I could. But she just has a certain vibe about her, and you can hear it if you listen to even a couple Doty songs. For good Doty good words. That's where the hydration break. Remember to hydrate, folks. But for good Doty albums, Human EP and You EP. Those are two really good ones. But honestly, with Doty, you can start just about anywhere. Also, check out her collaborations with cover band Pomplamoose. Pomplamoose is also an amazing band that they do a lot of really inventive covers. And they worked with Doty. They did a cover of her song Monster that absolutely goes really hard. And Doty was on that cover. And then they did a breakup mashup, which is like if I were to go through a breakup, I would, and it was like a sort of messy one. I would definitely go with that one because just wow, it's absolutely incredible. I highly recommend at the very least checking out Breakup Mashup by Doty and Pomplamoose. Moving on, over this past summer, during lockdown, I wound up listening to a lot of bedroom pop. Like a lot of bedroom pop, like more bedroom pop than I had any right to. Which like I enjoyed. Well, obviously I enjoyed it. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't be listening to it now, would I? But yeah, I just ooh, ow, ow, ooh, ah, ooh, oh, sorry, gameplay. But yeah, I would listen to a lot of bedroom pop to the point where I almost forgot how to listen to anything that wasn't bedroom pop. Another thing that's musically important to me is musicals, because I'm a theater kid, but I'm gonna hold off talking too much about musicals. I feel like that'd be good for another episode if this is a series that receives positive feedback / I decide I want to do again. So just so much bedroom pop. Like I almost got into Hippocampus. I listened to MXM Tune. Obviously, Rex Orange County was there too. A little bit of Conan Gray, even just a little bit, not much. I'm kind of finicky about Conan Gray stuff. Like I need to be in a mood, and it needs to be certain it's Conan Gray, right? Yeah. I'll look and feel like a fool if I'm totally getting his name wrong after I'm talking about how much I've listened to him. But yeah, like Maniac, I know it was like a top charting hit, but Maniac was a really, really good song. Checkmate was a lot of fun, especially in my more angry at things on those days. Yeah, it was just a real joy to listen to that one. Whomst else was I listening to that summer? Not really sure, but Claire Rosencrantz's Backyard Boy was kind of a big deal around that time. So I listened to that, and I actually do own a corduroy jacket that I think I look quite good in, and when I first put it on, I went, now I am become corduroy boy. or the backyard boy, because there's the lyric. Um, so ow, ooh. So I just really I really liked that song. Runaway Man by I forgot who what their name is, but that's a good song. Look at this grab dude. Um, but yeah, lots and lots and lots of bedroom pop. Not a lot of really anything else. Also regular pop. Around this time, I was starting to actually figure out how I felt about regular pop music. And like the late tens were really, 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 really good for pop music in my opinion. Um, there's just something about like the style that everyone was having. Like Dua Lipa, for example. Oh, she's great. Um, really, really enjoyed the stuff that she's been putting out. Even the regular chop charting stuff has been really good, and I don't always feel that way about chop charting, top charting pop music. There's a bit of a tongue twister. Don't always feel that way about that kind of stuff. So I'm glad that her music's been really, really, really good. Also, while I haven't gotten too much into their work, Sam Smith, they're pretty good. I know that they just put out a new album that I'm very interested in listening to at some point when I find the time and willpower. There that An rather unfortunate thing about how I listen to music is that sometimes I just really, really want to listen to anything but what I have going on, like music wise at the moment. But then sometimes I'm just a simple man and I want to have my same three songs on repeat over and over. Um, which this is kind of one of those phases right now. Which brings me into talking about my current musical obsession. I I was expecting to really get into math rock. Like I was thinking, all right, this is I had just heard Never like fully listened to Never Meant by American Football for the first time. Like the whole album, American Football 1999. And I was like, wow, American Football, huh? This is a really really cool album. I wonder what other math rock is like. And I tried to give other math rock a shot briefly, and like it was fine, I guess. It wasn't quite for me. I think some of it, but I was really anticipating that to be the next thing for me to listen to. And it wasn't. That's okay. That's another thing. If there's an artist that or musician or whoever that you really think that you like, but then you try and like give that genre a try and it just doesn't vibe as much as you thought it would with you. That's also perfectly cool because there's plenty of music fish in the music sea. So then I started actually listening to Ben Folds. Now I had heard my friends talk a lot about Ben Folds in the past in like high school. We had a couple big Ben Folds fans um, in my high school. Yeah, I know, low battery. And like really big. Like going to concerts. I haven't been to too many concerts for specific artists either. I really would like to go see some of the artists that I've talked about live, but they had seen plenty of Ben Folds songs and they have listened to plenty of Ben Folds songs and seen plenty of Ben Folds concerts. I had listened to some Ben Folds. I had listened to Rocking the Suburbs. That quickly became one of my favorite albums of all time. That's just a very, very solid album. But there is just something about Ben Folds. I remembered early on like this year that I had started to really get into Ben Folds, or that I could get into Ben Folds if I wanted to. I remember that Ben Folds is an artist that exists, is what I'm trying to say. So I went back and I gave some earlier Ben Folds a try, like Ben Folds 5 in particular, which if thing about Ben Folds 5 is that they're actually a 3-person group. It's just a fun little joke that they did, which sort of tells you the vibe. Ben Folds is a jazz influenced rock musician, I guess is the best way to put his work. But he can sort of branch out. Anyway, I recently gave Whatever Never Amen a try. I fully listened to Songs for Silverman finally, which I had heard the song The Landed off of that plenty of times. But Songs for Silverman, I actually like sat down and said, I'm going to listen to this album now, and I did, and I loved it. And there's plenty of great songs on it. And then I listened to Whatever Never Amen, Ben Folds 5, plenty of great songs on that. And that's sort of how it all started. Now I'm listening to a lot more Ben Folds. I still haven't made my way through his entire discography quite yet, but like I'm gearing up for it. But it's been a sort of listen to the same 3 songs over and over kind of cycle for me at the moment. Like I had my new song window, and then I heard Ben Folds, and I heard a couple Ben Folds albums, and I went, okay, new song window is over. Time to listen to Ben Folds all day and all night. And I actually haven't even listened to Rock in the Suburbs too much. It's mostly been Whatever Never Amen. Also, he has this great live album, live in Perth in Australia, where he plays with the West Australian Symphonic Orchestra. And there you can see like, oh, my love for orchestral stuff makes another appearance. And the arrangements on that album are just absolutely incredible. Like Smoke, which is a Ben Folds 5, Whatever Never Amen song. The arrangement for that's just like heartbreaking. Evaporated. I'm pretty sure that's that one has it has an arrangement for it. The live album was my first exposure to like narcolepsy off the unauthorized biography of Reinhold Messinger, or Reinhard Messner, whatever, the unauthorized biography album, which I had already heard Army off of, but I hadn't heard much else from it. So that was a treat to sort of have that experience. I will say that off the live album, I was rather only slightly unimpressed with the arrangement of Stephen's Last Night in Town, just because it was like pretty extra similar to the original recording, and I was just like, oh, this is cool and all, but I want to hear something new and different. But I did not get to hear something new and different, which is fine because there were other new and different things off that album anyway. Plus, it's a live album, so you can't expect like studio quality recording equipment on stage, because that would just be absurd. But it would be nice. Maybe one day we'll have really, really, really good area mics that just pick up all the nuance of a live orchestra. Yeah, no, that's just silly to even think about. But yes, like Whatever Never Amen has, oh, excuse me, a lot of good songs off of that. What else for Ben Folds? I suppose that's all I have to say about Ben Folds. I will jump back in time a little bit to like the mid, like winter fall of 2020, and November. I really branched out from my usual listening tastes, and I gave MF Doom a shot. MF Doom was a hip hop artist, producer, performer sometimes, and his whole deal was that like he was a villain, and he sure was, in the best of ways. The illest villains. I sound it sounds kind of silly when I say it, but it sounds cool when he says it. But yeah, I listened to Mad Villainy, which is his album that he did with Mad Villain, and then I listened to Food, and Food became one of my favorite albums of all time. I would listen to it a lot when I was like driving to go somewhere. I would just be like, oh, let me listen to Food now. Like I'm on my way to whatever to wherever I'm getting lunch. Yeah, I'll listen to beef rap. That's great. That's the other thing. Food has this delightful gimmick where all the songs are named after food, apart from one, Vomit Spit, which I guess you could interpret as, I mean, it's related to food. There was food in there at some point. Just doesn't look like it anymore. But yeah, I had started listening to his music in early November, which now looking back is rather tragic because of course he passed away October 31st, and no one knew. It was kept very much on the down low that he had even passed. No one knew until like December 31st that he had died. And it was a final gut punch from 2020, which was a year full of gut punches. But it was just the final little thing. And it's a shame because I was getting all excited about the work that he was going to be putting out. Because he had done a couple. He had, as far as I can tell, he'd started taking more of a role as a producer. Like he did a couple chill songs that were like really nice. That I just never really. That I wish that he would have had more of, but alas, that's how it goes. Damn, we're getting morbid again. Gosh, I don't want to get morbid right now, but it can't be helped, I suppose. I am not going to die. I am. There we go. But yeah, highly recommend listening to Food. Highly recommend listening to Ben Folds. And that takes us to about where we are currently with my listening experience. Duh, Jacob Collier. Jacob Collier, he's a bit of a musician's musician, you can say. Just because of like how he does his thing. It's very obviously you don't have to be a musician to appreciate his music, because that's just like super duper elitist. That's not the case at all. If you have like no musical background, you can totally listen to Jacob Collier songs and go, wow, this is very cool. But if you are a musician, you might have a slightly heightened appreciation for his work in particular, just because of like what he does chordally and everything. It's very intricate. Yeah, like I listened to just Volume 3. Lots of good songs off that. I tap danced a little bit, and one of my favorite songs to like do improv to is "He Won't Hold You" from Jesse Volume 3. And I also recently bought the Songs of Jacob Collier sheet music book because it was back in stock. The first time that I saw it was being sold, I gave it like 5 minutes before I tried to buy it, and it was already sold out. And I was like, oh well, guess I won't be buying this. But then it came back into stock, and a friend let me know. Thankfully, so I got to purchase that. So I'm working up my piano skills to get to being able to play all of those songs, which actually pretty seamlessly brings me to my next topic, which is playing music. Like I said, I'm a musician. I have played percussion for about 9 years now, and I'm very proud of it. It's been a lot of timpani in like high school. That was like my main instrument, so to speak. I had started out with drum set and snare drum, and I used to be terrible at like the mallet instruments, like the marimba, the vibraphone. Like, oh, can I ring that? Huh. Anyway, I was just not very good at melodic instruments for a long while. But then I learned how to actually get good at that, and I found appreciation for it. And then I started to like actually really play mallet instruments. My if you were to ask me right now, I'd say that um, my favorite instrument is, of the percussion section, is probably the vibraphone. Like, there's just something about it that's just really, really, really entertaining to play. A great vibraphonist would be like Milt Jackson. I've listened to a good chunk of Milt Jackson. Jumping back to jazz music, and like Joe Locke. He's an incredibly well known jazz vibraphonist, and he's great. Yeah. So I've been playing a lot of vibraphone, or at least I was. I managed to borrow my high school's one of my high school's vibraphones during lockdown, because it's not like anyone was using it then. So I went, "Hey, band teacher of mine, can I borrow the vibraphone?" And he said, "Sure." So then I had a vibraphone sitting in my home for a good chunk of time. And it was a very enjoyable chunk of time that I really should have spent playing the vibraphone more often, because sometimes I'm really, really terrible at practicing, just because I just kind of go, practice right now? Really? Do I have to? And then I just, like, don't. And it sucks that I don't practice as much as I really, really should. But oh well, what are you gonna do? Other than practice more, I guess. I guess that's what I'm going to do, is practice more. But yeah, practicing has just sort of been tricky for me. And obviously there are like, I know how to practice. It's just a matter of making myself really sit at the keyboard, or go at the drum set or whatever, and say, I'm going to practice specifically this and probably nothing else for a little bit. I'd sort of start to wander. I had a good practice moment the other day, actually, where I was like, let me actually really sit down, force myself to practice for a moment, which was nice. I didn't even practice for that long, though, so I guess I need to go back and practice some more at some point. But I also play keyboard, of course. Like, the transition from percussion to keyboard is a pretty simple one, because it's like, what doors do I have? Let's go up here. It's just the keys are the same, is what I'm trying to say. Like, with mallet instruments, if you were to look at a marimba and look at a piano, you would go, oh, totally, these are 100% the same deal. Like, it's the same notes, the same layout of notes in particular. So it was honestly the biggest challenge for me, wasn't getting used to like reading sheet music or anything, or getting used to what notes are what. It was to really understand how to like use my hands properly. It just wasn't something that I could really do, I guess. Let's do this. And yeah, like I just am not always the best practicer, but I learned piano. I took private lessons with piano for the first time over the summer, which was a lot of fun. And I learned some jazz piano skills too, and like jazz chord voicings, as well as of course regular classical music, and a little bit of pop stuff too. Like Ben Folds is absolutely so much fun to play on keyboard. Because like he plays piano, so of course his stuff is fun. Yeah, let's use this. But yeah, sorry for a moment. It's boss time. If you have been, if you have been listening, again, which is a totally valid way of experiencing this podcast, by design. This is a boss, and this is a tricky boss, and oftentimes I die here. I've only gotten past this guy once before, so I'm unfortunately having to concentrate a little bit more on the gameplay at the moment. Anyway. Alright, playing music. So, I also have played in a couple orchestras in my time, like just youth orchestras. And those have been a lot of fun, of course. Ooh, I'm doing really well. There we go. Like I've most of my classical experience, beyond like going to concerts, has been playing music. Most of the classical music that I listen to because I played it. Like a perfect example would be Holst's The Planets, which The Planets is an absolutely wonderful work that I just never really. I probably wouldn't have listened to it so much. What's special about The Planets? And this is here I can speak rather eloquently about this as a timpanist. It's one of the earlier pieces that actually had two timpani, because if you look at a lot of works that were if you look at earlier timpani works, like let's say you're looking at like Beethoven, sure, it's a lot of like 1-5-1 scale degrees, which is like do sol do, if you're familiar with solfege. Basically, home wants to go to home 1-5-1. That was a lot of how timpani was written. There wasn't a lot of retuning. It wasn't very melodic. It was all about support. But then Holst comes along, and he looks at the scene, right? And he goes, not sure how I feel about the timpani being the way that they are. Like, I don't want to just write I don't want to write boring stuff. I want my timpanists to be a little bit entertained. So he goes, what can I do? What can I do? I want more melodic timpani, which is not something that people had really done, because again, let me talk about how the timpani works, actually. That would probably be good. It was just, they're big kettle drums. Yeah, the timpani are the kettle drums, if you didn't gather. They're the big round ones that look like bowls that's in the back of the orchestra. And how you tune them, because they're tuned percussion instruments, they're pitched like the mallet instruments, and unlike the snare drum and bass drum, there's a pedal that that you can use to retune. And like it's not an exact pedal, because that's, like, it's a pedal, it's fluid motion, and pitch is not locked into place, unless you're expressly talking about like 12-tone equal temperament, and even then pitch still isn't locked into place. Like, you look at that's actually something that Jacob Collier likes to talk about a lot, is how he'll often say that 12-tone equal temperament is a bit of a scam, and sometimes he's right. 12-tone equal temperament is it's the tuning system that we use most of the time, at the very least here in the States, where you like it's the most mathematically correct way of looking at music, so to speak, which is that like all the A is tuned to 440 because that's a nice and mathy number. 440 hertz. That's what like A440 means, and everything else is mathematically tuned around that. Whereas just intonation, which is like quote unquote proper tuning, would be that all of the notes are related to each other pitch-wise, where like you're tuning all of your notes so that they are in tune with each other, as opposed to let me elaborate more properly. You're tuning the notes so that they make sense together. I'm explaining it wrong again. It's ratios. So pitches and is like done by ratio, basically. And just intonation takes everything as ratios from whatever your like main note is. Whereas 12-tone equal temperament is just sort of general ratios and numbers and equivalents and all that. So just intonation sounds better. It sounds more in tune, especially to like people with highly trained ears, unlike myself. I can't really tell it. I would struggle to tell you the difference between just intonation and regular like 12-tone equal temperament. Like I'm sure if you give me enough time I could figure it out, but it's not really something I can do on command. And there's nothing wrong with that, that I can't do that, because it's not too useful of a skill in the field that I'm entering, but it would still be nice. Anyway, it just sounds more in tune, but it also makes it more difficult to handle, because you're constantly readjusting what a note is. So you can't really do just intonation on a piano, because as soon as you play a note that isn't mathematically related properly to the first note that you played or whatever, then you're instantly out of tune. So just intonation really works best with like singers, for example, because the voice isn't bound to any particular keys or anything. You don't need to tune your voice. You just sing. And that's something that Jacob Collier takes advantage of a lot in his music. There is one piece, or in his arrangement of In the Bleak Midwinter, which is a Christmas carol, I think, or something like it. He uses just intonation to switch into G half sharp major. You do not normally do anything in any note half sharp major. You don't work with half sharps. Half sharps are like quarter tones, which is a whole breed of its own. Like, oh no, oh no, oh no, 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 no. Whew, sorry, tricky guy. But yeah, just intonation is just much more difficult to work with, and I'm glad it's not something I deal with. Anyway, I was talking about timpani and Holst the Planet. So because of all that tuning stuff, basically it's difficult to or it was at the time in particular difficult to properly tune the piano, or excuse me, the timpani. So Holst then gets the brilliant idea to have two timpanists playing at the same time on two sets of timpani. That's a big health gain. And I'm really glad he did, because he wound up making one of the coolest timpani parts ever in the process. Particularly like Mars, which is the da 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 dun 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 da 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 dun dun. You've probably heard it, even if you're not sure that you've heard it. It's absolute classic work, you know. Ow, ow, ow. But yeah, the planets, and there's this one cool part, which I got to play selections from the planets, because there's 6 pieces, I think, if I'm correct. There are 6 pieces in the planets, and they just where am I going with this? Right, it's a lot of fun to play them. There's this one section in Jupiter, which goes dun 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 dun. The timpani actually can, with the two timpanists, it would normally be incredibly almost impossible to play by yourself. The timpani, being split between 2 parts, goes dun 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 dun, and it's just it's the most fun thing to play, and you need to be in sync with the whoever's playing the other timpani part. I wound up playing First Symphony for that concert, and this was with one of the orchestras that I had played with for a time during like high school. But yeah, like that part's a lot of fun. But then there's the 3/4 down 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 down, that part, which also I later found out thanks to catching my parents watch an episode of The Crown. I think it's that part got converted into a British anthem, which I think is funny, because I'm pretty sure Gustav Holst was not British, as I'm sure you could probably guess by his name. Oh no. Oh no no no. Oh no no no. Oh, well folks, I think you might see the end of this run here. Oh, maybe not, maybe not, maybe not. Maybe not. Alright. Now where were we? We're about to die, that's where we are. But yeah, Holt's the planets. Just very, very good, very, very good work. Anyway, there's the 3/4 section. You can take that timpani part. Where am I supposed to go? And you can turn it into a you can make it playable by one person. It's a bass line, but it's a cool bass line. But yeah, most of the times, like the timpanist at the local orchestra that I mentioned earlier, He likes to condense that one part into one player, because while it's cool and all to be playing with like another person, it's just at the end of the day easier and more cohesive. Oh, we made it through. It's easier to actually play like a timpani part as one timpanist, because then you're not having to make sure everything lines up perfectly with the other player. So that in the 3/4 section, you can condense the 2-player part into 1 player, which is just totally tons of fun to play. So yeah, that's probably one of the highlights of my music playing career in orchestra. Another highlight would be what is it? What is it? Why can I not think of the words? West Side Story, symphonic dances from West Side Story. I mentioned Bernstein earlier as a very very good composer. He he composed West Side Story among other things, but he did a symphonic suite arrangement of pieces from West Side Story, and I got to play that twice. Once as sort of auxiliary percussion, and once as what's it? As the drum set player, because that's one of the most fun drum set parts out there, in my opinion. And I think most percussionists would agree with me. As a side note, this is about to be the final boss, I think. So, and I've never gotten this far, so forgive me if I totally panic and start to focus on the boss in this next area. But that's just how this format goes. That's what we like to do on the Jazcast, I think. Again, working series. But West Side Story is just such a fun piece. I highly recommend listening to symphonic dances from West Side Story. You can find Bernstein conducting it, though most of the times there's this tiny little part that gets cut out. Like it's like maybe 30 measures that gets cut, but they fly by. But still, it just always makes me sad. To go, oh wow, I wish that there were. Excuse me for a moment while I take in the hand. But yeah, it was just. Oh god, he has so much health. Oh no. Sorry, folks at home. This is just a lot for me to process at the moment. Oh no. Oh no. But yeah, it's just such a fun piece to play. And I'm so glad that I got to play it twice, because for a lot of particular like high school orchestras, or people who just play orchestra in high school, it's not exactly a commonplace thing to be able to play a game. Oh god, you can see what this final boss is doing to me. It's to be able to play a piece multiple times. It's not the most common thing, and the only reason I got to do it is because I played in 2 different orchestras in like middle school and high school. So I got to I got to do it twice on 2 different parts, and I'm very very happy that I got to. Yep, that's it. Oh god, that was the farthest I've ever gotten that game, as a side note. But yeah, I got to play the piece twice, and among other pieces. Moving on from my symphonic experience, I also arrange and compose a little bit. Like I arranged a lot for a cappella because I was in an a cappella group in high school. I was a director. We had 3 directors, all students each year, and I was a director for two of those 4 years that I was in that group. Again, another awesome experience that I'm very, very glad that I got to have. But yeah, I need to calm down from that fight. Whew. I just am distracted. I am distracted. That is what is going on. But yeah, I've arranged a lot for a cappella. It's one of my passions. Is taking a music and just going, oh wow, it's time for me to make this something slightly different and somewhat new. Though also I have a terrible work ethic when it comes to a cappella arrangements. Like, there's an arrangement that I should be working on at the moment, actually, that I just sort of am not. Whoops. But I'll get around to it soon enough. I don't not get it done. That's the thing. I always get my arrangements done. Anyway, gotta get off the screen. There we go. I always get my arrangements done. As on time is a very interesting concept that sometimes I just sort of act like doesn't exist. Because, well, it's difficult arranging, coming up with ideas all the time, making things new and inventive and just like sounding good. It ain't easy, but I still do it sometimes. And sometimes people like what I do, and sometimes I like what I do, which is, I always like to like what I do. But sometimes I don't, and sometimes I just get stuck for a while. And I get sad when I get stuck for a while. But that's the process. And it's totally okay if you find yourself stuck with anything for whatever reason. That's just sort of how it goes, isn't it? But yeah, also I've done a little bit of composing in my time. Mostly for my high school music theory class, but also on my own too. At the moment, I am trying to write a waltz in B minor, yeah, which I'm having a lot of fun with. One of my favorite composing techniques that I like to do for funsies is I'll go up to a group of friends and I'll go, okay, everyone in the room, give me a note. And they all give me a note at random, and they all give me a different note usually. I actually haven't had anyone ever give me the same note because that's sort of a constraint that they put on themselves, I guess. Like, oh, I need to say a note that hasn't been said. No, you could everyone in the room could say C, and I would still have to figure out what to do with it. But that's what I do. I take the notes I've been given and I try and make music from it. And I think it's just a fun little exercise that I like to do. And like, I'll take those notes, I'll improv a little bit with them on piano, and then I see what resurfaces. I'll like rearrange them, figure out what key they're in, if they're in a key, if they make any sense to be talked about in a key. And I go, oh yeah, let's do this. Let's give this a shot. And it's just a lot of fun to do that. A little bit of a brain teaser, especially since I'm someone who struggles to come up with melodies a lot. Whenever I do like arranging things, or excuse me, when I do composition things, I just sort of blank out when it comes to writing melodies. But oh well. That's just sort of how it goes with me, I guess. I've always been more harmonically capable, and I've always been more interested in like how harmony works anyway. So it makes sense that I'm a bit better at coming up with like chords and whatnot rather than rather than harmony, or excuse me, rather than melody. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just something for me to work on, is figuring out how to come up with quality melodies. It's a skill, and it's also a talent. And I am slightly lacking the talent, but that doesn't mean that I can't be lacking in the skill. So yeah, that's just about everything I wanted to cover, I think. Also, sharing music. I wanted to touch on that as a concept because sharing music is it's something that's pretty important to me. I like discussing music with other people. I like talking about music with other people. I think it's just a lot of fun to see what other people listen to and to show them what I listen to. And whenever I like am listening to music, or like seeing people talk about music or talking about people with music, I always keep as open a mind as possible. Like, unless it's modern country. I don't like modern country. I have very few like, I would like to think that I'm capable of at least attempting to view whether or not music is good from within its own genre perspective. Like, I just enjoy like seeing, oh, um does this sound good within the genre, like, let alone for my taste. Is do do does the genre appreciate how this sounds, or is this just objectively bad, or is this just how the genre sounds? Because, like, I haven't had a lot of hip hop experience in my life. It's just not something that I really explored too much. At least not until MF Doom, and then even still, I haven't listened to the genre too much. But I can like look at MF Doom and say, oh wow, this is really good. It's particularly for within the genre, let alone just as like just generally speaking, really good. But like, country is just not something I really enjoy. Though I like outlaw music, like Jim Croce. Jim Croce, I can vibe with. Not a lot else, unfortunately. Um, but of course, there's nothing wrong with disliking a genre. Nothing wrong with it at all. Sometimes people just don't really get it, and it's okay not to get it. I don't get country. I don't get a lot of Christian music, like worship music. Though I know that good worship music exists, I just don't exactly know where to find it. And I haven't gone looking for it too hard either, because again, oftentimes I just wanna vibe. That's all that I want to do is vibe. Sometimes, and other times I just want to listen to new music all the time. I do want to touch back on MF Doom briefly. Little bit scattery, but just sort of another thing about MF Doom. Part of why his music affected me so much is that I just his rhyme schemes, his the way that he rhymes. Ooh. There's a video on YouTube of like highlighted, like his song Figaro. Looking at those rhyme schemes highlighted, he rhymes almost every syllable. It is just absurd, like the amount of skill. It's like, oh, I like just it's wow. It's so very wow. Um, but yeah. Very, very impressive of him. And I think with that Death by Curse, I feel like that's a great place to end episode 1 of Jazcast. I hope you enjoyed me discussing music among other things and related things. I hope you enjoyed however you experienced this format, whether or not it was by watching me play the game or just having me on in the background or just listening to me while like having tea or something. Thank you so much. I am Jazz. You have been here, and this is Jazzcast. See you next time.